You're my first guest from Germany. How is Germany today?
Dark and locked down, but other than that, quite well. We do something called Supply Chain 4.0 that is utilizing the principles of Industry 4.0 in the electronic supply chain. I am one of three CEOs. I am in charge of sales and marketing. My job is to get more customers. The other CEO's job is to keep the customers. And the last one is to make sure they always have innovative products.
What the pain points you try to resolve when you decided to get to outsourcing?
We are a software development company. We are not an HR company. And we were spending far too much time, and it wasn't enjoyable time, I must say, recruiting, finding people, searching people. Because it's not what we do, I have to say we weren't very good at it. We thought we had the right person. It turned out they weren't. We weren't asking the right questions in the interviews. We weren't evaluating and analyzing candidates well enough. And unfortunately, we were discovering this when it was far too late. That was the main pain point. We were always afraid of outsourcing, to be honest with you. The frightening tales, and we had heard if you're not careful, your product is going to be on the market in India or China 6 months later. It's a black hole. You don't have contact with the people. And those horror stories were really just blocking us from even looking into outsourcing, to be frank. One day, I got a scribble scratch letter from a doctor saying this particular developer is going to be sick for the next 3.5 weeks. Telling me now that you're going to be sick 3.5 weeks. And that to me was just the trigger where I said, you know what? I'm done with this. It's not my job to find people. It's not my job to babysit. It's not my job to do this. Literally, I don't know, not even an hour later, I got an email pop up from a guy at Pentalog who I knew the name because he had called me twice a year for the last 5 years, essentially. And I found him very professional, but I said, no, sorry, it's just not what we do. And he said, that's what we hear a lot, but just keep my name in mind. You probably will hit a point where you're open to it. And that was exactly two things that just happened at the same time. I picked up the phone, called him up and said, look, I want to talk to you.
Weren't you afraid that the developers that you would work with wouldn't be as motivated or involved in your
Absolutely.
business than the employees?
That was my biggest fear. How can you address my biggest concern? We sat down for a few hours at the Pentalog office. We heard the pitch. We saw the structure. We listened to exactly how this whole setup would work. Technically, do they have a direct connection to the compile software, or do we need a second server? So we solved the technical issues. I solved the pricing issues. They were able to explain how, for all intents and purposes, these people will feel like part of the team as much as anyone else does. We're going to try with one person. From then on in, it becomes easy because that person worked out so well that we said, all right, let's go now for a second person. And if the second person works well, now you go for a third person. Once you've got 3 people, adding a fourth is... Now it's not really a decision, it's a logical consequence. The last, we just added another person, interestingly enough, not even in development, but in QA. The decision to say, okay, that worked out so well. Do we want to go back to interviewing and having to be an HR company again? We're glad we moved beyond that. We're a small, medium business. If we can save money, it's important to us. It's not other people's money that we're working, it's our own. So we're happy to save money, but that wasn't our main goal to achieve. It was to get rid of all the other headaches. When you really look at all the numbers, the missing days, the absences, the cost of making a mistake in Europe with an employee is absolutely higher than it is in the US or other territories as well. If you take everything into account, the bottom line is definitely positive. My two pieces of advice was, number one, discount the horror tales and discount the fairy tales. Your product will not show up 6 months later on the market. And if it does, you should have taken a better look at your product security anyway. Forget the fairy tales as well. You will not get a team of 10 A1 developers for the price of one local guy. It just won't happen. And take a look at all of the cost of direct employment. Put all of the numbers next to each other when you look at the numbers. So outsource the headaches.